I've just finished overhauling the top end of my engine, and I thought it'd be a good time to also replace the reeds on my VForce4 reed valve. I've already removed the reed valve, so this video is going to be showing you how to replace the reed petals. So here's my VForce4 reed valve. I've used it for 100 hours now, and I was wondering what the reeds would look like after that time, and I've inspected them all. I couldn't find any damage at all, and I think you can probably see there. There's no chipping or anything. I'll flip it over. And yeah, all of the reed valves look in very good shape as though they're new. But anyway, it's got 100 hours on the reeds, so I went ahead and ordered a replacement kit. The kit comes with instructions on how to replace the reeds, and a set of reeds, some retaining bars, and also a tool to disassemble the reed valve. The first thing I'm going to do is take a note of the orientation of the different parts. The internal part you can see is offset, and I want to make sure that I mount that correctly when I reassemble it. And the first step of disassembly is to take the tool and put it down between the reed stop and the reed petal and push it down firmly. And then you can press the reed cage to pop it out, and you can probably see it's just popped out now. Then you can remove the reed petals on the outside. I'm just using a toothpick to help take those apart. It's 1, 2. And these reed petals look in really good shape. There's absolutely no chipping at all. The next step is to remove the retainer bars. There's one here and one here. And the method to do that is to use a tool and push the retainer bars from inside. And you can see one's coming out there. And then turn it around and do the same for the other side. And once they're partially out, you can use some pliers and pull them completely out. And then with the retainer bars removed, you can take the reed petals out. That's one. That's the other side. And these reeds look in very good shape as well. So there's no cracking, no chipping. Okay, now I'm ready to install the new reeds, and I'm going to install the inside reeds first, and you need 2 in there. One important thing with the reeds is they have slots in, which you can see here, and those align with the slots in the reed cage. So when you install the reeds, it's important to make sure those are seated correctly. So I'm going to drop 2 new reeds in, and then separate them, and then make sure they're aligned correctly and seated on the slots. So when you've confirmed that, you can take one of the retainers, and the retainer has a pointed end and a flat end, and the pointed end should go in first. So you can kind of angle the retainer and spread the reeds out, and then start feeding it in. So I'm going to push it in partially and then go to the other side and do the same thing from this side. So again, making sure the reeds are seated, start feeding it in. And that looks good, so I'm going to push it all the way in, and the same with this one. And then once you put the retainers in, make sure the reeds are seated correctly against the reed cage. So that looks good. Okay, now I'm ready to install the outer reeds, and this is pretty easy because you can see where the tabs are very clearly on the reed cage. So Just line it up and then press them onto the tabs, and do the other side. Press it on. And once you've confirmed that they're lined up correctly and seated nicely on the tabs, you have to align the two pieces correctly. Like I said when I was taking it apart, the hole is off center, so you need to make sure that you assemble it correctly. So it's a good idea to take a photo before you disassemble so you can reference that, and then just press it in. Make sure before you press it firmly in, the reeds are still located correctly, and then press it until it snaps. And then double check that all the reeds are seated correctly. And when you reinstall the reed valve, I highly recommend using a new gasket. You can see here the black one is the original gasket, and it's all torn in this area, and these holes are much larger than they should be. I didn't have a replacement gasket, so I just made one out of some gasket sheet and used a sharp knife and a 6mm punch to make the holes. It's a pretty easy shape to make, so it only took 5-10 minutes to do. So definitely use a new gasket, otherwise you might have sealing issues.